Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Council Chambers on this beautiful May 27th. Again, if you're looking outside, it is beautiful. Our public works is in full swing, and the same with our Parks and Rec. And the town's looking pretty good, so well done to our General Manager of Public Works. Thank you for getting the staff on top of it, and the community is looking very well. Thank you. Members of Council, there is an agenda before you. And before asking for a motion, just as you can tell, Council is wearing our Oilers jerseys, except for Councillor Meyer. Councillor Meyer believes that if he doesn't wear a jersey, the Oilers win. Because that one time that he wore a jersey, the Oilers lost. And I believe the last time we were all in jersey, and Councillor Meyer was not, the Oilers won. So I think that's a good omen, right, Councillor Meyer?
I think it actually proves what I'm talking about.
So that is why Council's in Oilers jersey tonight. Deputy Mayor, for the motion, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council adopt the May 27th, 2024 regular council meeting agenda as presented.
Okay. Administration, anything to add or to change?
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing to add at this time.
Okay, thank you. So the agenda is as amended? Oh, thank you. Just checking if everybody's on their ball. So I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to number 3 of our agenda is the public input session. This is the time that we allow residents to address council on anything that's not on the current agenda. So if they want to talk about different things in their community or just share some insight with council. Administration, has anybody registered to speak?
Through Your Worship, no one has registered.
Thank you. Anybody in the gallery like to speak to council on anything that's not on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, number 4 is presentations and delegations. We have nothing scheduled tonight. Moving on to number 5 is statutory public hearings. We have nothing scheduled tonight either. Moving on to number 6 is the adoption of the regular council meeting for May 13th. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that Town Council approve the May 13th, 2024 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Okay. Thank you. Members of council, you had the opportunity to read them. Any errors or omissions on the minutes? Okay. Go ahead, administration. There was a couple errors, just don't highlight them so it'd be as not as presented, but it'd be as amended, right?
Through Your Worship, there were a few clerical amendments that did not change any context of the minutes themselves, and so those have been amended.
Okay. Thank you. So the motion is as amended. Okay. Question, council comments, and debate? See none, I'll call the question on favor. That is carried. Okay, moving on to number 7, which is council boards and committee minutes. Looking at the growth and commerce. Councillor Hansard, please.
Your Worship, are we having a motion first?
Yes, the motion.
Okay. Your Worship, I move that Town Council receive the council board and committee minutes for information.
Okay, thank you. Members of council, it is the Growth and Commerce Committee from February 27th. Any questions, comments to the council representatives that attend, that sit on there? Okay, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I note that in previous minutes relating to some questions that were asked at the previous council, I'm just wondering, oh, I see somebody's changed this from my minutes to the other minutes. I see what's gone on here. Okay, never mind. I don't have a question. Somebody's changed what I was going to ask.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, I would call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to bylaws. We'll start with 8.1, which is the bylaw for the Public Works Administration building. Go ahead, administration.
Thank you and good evening, Your Worship and Council. On April 22nd, Council passed first reading of Bylaw 2689 DEB 24, authorizing borrow for the construction of the Public Works Administrative Building. The second and third readings of the borrowing bylaw before Council this evening is to authorize the boring of the facility in the amount of $2,052,000. The remainder of the project budget is authorized through Local Government Fiscal Framework, LGFF, previously Municipal Sustainability Initiative, or MSI. The bylaw has been advertised as per Municipal Government Act requirements with no petitions received.
Okay, thank you much for your presentation. And I'm glad that there was no questions or requests for information. Members of council, any questions for clarity and understanding? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation this evening. Excuse me. I believe this was asked or spoken to last council meeting as well, but just for my own clarity, just to ensure, under the budget and financial impacts here, sorry, I'm not getting a page number on my computer this evening, so 18 it looks like. Just speaks to the internal debt limit, where we're going to be 4%. The debt limit available would be 4%, exceeding that limit by 16%. This is inclusive of all three borrowing bylaws that we're considering or that are on the agenda for this evening. Is that correct?
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Anderson and all of council. So that is inclusive of all three of the bylaws before you today, as well as the first reading of the rec center bylaw.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for that question and clarification. Any other questions for clarification or understanding? Okay, seeing none, Councillor Anderson, I'll ask you to make the motion, please.
Thank you again. I'll move that town council give second reading to bylaw 2689/DEB/24, a bylaw to authorize debenture borrowing in the amount of $2,052,000 for the construction of the Public Works Administrative Building.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments and debate on the motion? Councillor Hanser, go ahead.
Your worship, no debate, just a comment. Our Public Works building, I believe, is a long time coming, and I know that a lot of work and planning has gone into making this a possibility. First impressions of our town often fall right into the lap of our Public Works Department, so I'm very pleased that council is taking this important step to make a better functioning facility so that we can have better care taken of our beautiful community.
Thank you, Councillor Hanser. Any other comments or debate? Okay. See none, definitely I'll be supporting it. As I mentioned, this is a long time coming in terms of looking at what we need for our community and looking at our strategic plan of moving up to 30,000 residents within town of Stone Plain over the next 10 years. We definitely need to have the assets ready and the personnel ready to be able to handle those challenges when we grow to 30,000 people. Okay. Call the question, all in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Meyer for third reading, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council give third reading to bylaw 2689/DEB/24.
Okay. Thank you. Any other debate? Comments? Okay. See none, I'll call the question, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Move on with number 8.2, which is the, again, bylaw for the Central Trunk Line Rehabilitation Program. Go ahead, Administration.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. On April 22nd, Council passed first reading of bylaw 2690/DEB/24, authorizing borrow for central trunk repairs. Second and third readings of the boring bylaw in the amount of $1.6 million is before Council tonight. The bylaw has been advertised as per Municipal Government Act requirements with no petitions received.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Members of Council, any questions for clarity and understanding? Okay, see none. Councillor Loynes.
Town Council gives second reading to bylaw 2690/DEB/24, a bylaw to authorize the debenture borrowing of the amount of $1,621,373 for the rehabilitation of Central Trunk.
Okay, thank you. Members of Council, any questions, comments, and debate on the motion? Maybe just one question for the general manager. In terms of the authorization to borrow this much, are we coming in close to that amount, or are we kind of trending higher in terms of the overall projects through conversations with your counterparts in other communities? Is it a general higher than what we've kind of projected or lower than what we projected?
Through your worship, thank you for the question. This project has not yet been tendered yet. We're currently going into the detailed design to go to construction later. These estimates were made with the intention of closer to the higher end of what we would expect them to come in at. These are deep repairs in some places. We are seeing some, we'll call them market fluctuations depending on the project. Some utility projects are coming in more favorable, but it depends on the time of year and what the circumstances are at the tendering time.
Thank you. Councillor, oh, your light is on. Do you have a question? Okay. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through to administration. I'm just wondering, when I see these come through to council, I always worry about what the tender process looks like and fairly at the end of the day. Because I know, sitting on the outside as a business person, when I read this, I know what council's got to spend. So it makes me think that I'm wondering if maybe our contractors see this as well and they go, they're prepared to spend $1.6 million. Is that opening the door for the opportunity for them to get closer to what they need for larger profit margins? Or does it give them an idea of just what that cost we expect it to be? And my concern is that it opens the door for them to know what it is that we are prepared to spend. And I'm wondering if there's a way to do these tenders that would make it more fair to them. A conversation maybe internally so we have an idea of what it is that we want to budget for, but let it go to tender first so that we know where it's going to be, then approve the funds.
Through your worship to Councillor Paleschko, appreciate the chance to comment on the tender process. So you are correct. We put all of our documents through council in the town are public, and if someone so desired, they could go search this project, go through the history, and find that information. That's certainly within their purview as we are a public-facing organization. I guess the check on that is ultimately the town does follow a procurement process that encourages competition. So that's either we're doing pre-qualifications with vendors and contractors that we would want to vet out that could they do the work and then engage in tender process, or sometimes we do a straight to market tender where the general check in there is going to be that all these other companies are going to be competing against themselves. So one example could be recently we closed a bridge culvert a couple of weeks ago, and it came in very favorably under budget amongst the competition. And we're currently just, that was with a publicly available fund. There was a grant attached to that. So competition in amongst the contracting community does exist. Sometimes they just need the work. They want to get the opportunity to work with the town or municipality. But you're right. Ultimately, if there's only a couple of contractors, sometimes they look at that. A vendor or contractor may choose to, I'm going to bid to that, and that's their risk to carry that they may or may not receive the work, or depending on the circumstances. We like to be truthful and forward-facing to council as required and as to build trust in the community that we are putting budgets that we feel are appropriate for the project at the time. That is something for these repairs that we feel are necessary. And ultimately, if we did see fluctuations, those would be reported through finance.
Thank you for that.
Your Worship, if I may, just a few further comments to that. So at its root, or at the foundation, there's a bit of a question there relating to transparency of the use of public dollars versus the efficiency or effective use of those dollars. Again, procurement process where the numbers, so to speak, are known, can raise some concerns or some questions. And I would go a little bit further and say that, a number of contractors will check our budgets in advance to know what what those numbers look like. But just as the general manager mentioned, the checks and balances isn't a competitive process. And as it relates to this particular topic, I think I would say my own observation, simply by where we're situated in the Edmonton metro region, where there are a number of significantly sized contractors that can handle the work, we can tend to do okay on that side of it. As a municipal issue, that question resonates sometimes a lot stronger in communities that are perhaps 200 kilometers away from Edmonton or Calgary or even Saskatoon or Winnipeg, where the number of contractors actually available to do the work narrows the competitive process, and it becomes a larger issue that I believe Councillor or Deputy Mayor Plechka was asking about. Further, last comment I'll make, Your Worship, every couple of years in the municipal sector, this as a specific topic is brought forward to provincial government or perhaps even federal government to ask that same question to see if there's any legal ability for municipalities to, I would say, shield those numbers to a degree for that competitive factor. And frankly, Your Worship, from my time, those are typically turned down by the government, the provincial government of the day or the federal government of the day, leaning towards the sides of transparency of use of taxpayer funds.
Okay, thank you for the answers and commentary. Any other questions? Yeah, I think it's a good question by the Deputy Mayor. It is out there in public, and I think as a public entity, we need to show that. So if we needed to, pay for this debenture, we need to know how much we're raising and how much we need. So it has to be up there in front of all the residents to see, and it does tend to lose, and as the town manager said, if there's only 3 contractors that are able to perform the service, then we might have that kind of less competition. But with this in the capital region, I think we're okay with that. So there should be some good contractors that will do their best to make sure that we get the best value for our dollars. Okay. Any other questions, comments regarding that? Oh, no more debate. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay. That is carried. Moving on to third reading. Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the Town Council give third reading to bylaw 2690/DEB/24.
Okay. Thank you. Members Council, any more debate on the motion? Okay. Seeing, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to 8.3, and again, this is the bylaw for the Meridian Heights Reservoir. Go ahead, administration.
Thank you. On April 22nd, Council passed first reading of bylaw 2691 DEB24, authorizing the borrow for the Meridian Heights Reservoir construction and tennis court relocation. The borrowing bylaw before Council is for the second and third readings for this project borrow in the amount of $5 million. The bylaw has been advertised as per Municipal Government Act requirements with no petitions received.
Thank you. Members of Council, any questions for clarity and understanding? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation again here as well. Just for my own clarity, and maybe others on council, this debenture borrow, does it include the amounts, previously discussed with council to move the rec amenities that are currently on top of the Meridian Reservoir, or will that come forward as a separate expenditure or borrowing bylaw at a later date?
Okay. Okay. Administration.
Through your worship to Councillor Anderson, yes, the short answer is yes. We're intending to do this in 2 parts, which is first to address complete the tendering and address the facility, but then also work with how to best relocate the facilities within the same budget.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Hansford, go ahead.
Your Worship, am I understanding correctly then that with no petitions coming forward means no one has applied to do this project? Is that correct?
That is, no, it's like there's no petitions about why we're borrowing the money.
Oh, nobody's complained about
Yes.
that. Okay, good.
Thank you. Any more questions for clarity and understanding? Just back to, I think we had some conversations when this came forward in terms of the top of the reservoir after this is done. Has staff had some more conversations about how we're going to program that space and use the space on top? Because having it fenced off and not accessible to the public is not acceptable to council.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'll speak to that. So following up from the previous question, I believe a couple of council meetings ago, or when first reading was in front of council. So what we've taken an opportunity to review the site in its entirety, so not exactly just the reservoir. Council will likely be familiar, there's a bit of a parking area, there's a playground structure in that particular area, some, trees, vegetation, so on and so forth, all located over there. And the approach we're going to begin and work our way through is to sort of open up the consideration that we need to look at a bit of a rehabilitation project of sorts for the entirety of the site, of the area. Not entirely, I will not be able to tell you exactly what that looks like in the future or specifically what that could be. But what I would like to advise council is that, taking into consideration the residents in the area, the state of which I think it's in pretty good shape out there, but Your Worship, I believe it could be better. And one of the things that, as we sat down and discussed that particular area, not sure what we call it other than the reservoir site, and I don't believe there's a name for it, is just the fact, Your Worship, and to the rest of council, that having given it a sober second thought, I think that in our commitment, we need to be better in that area on that site. Whether that means, some better tree planting, drainage, upgrades to the parking area, upgrades to the playground. We're gonna put our minds around what all that could be out there, including the original question about what does that look like on top of the reservoir itself. That's a rather technical side of things that we have to put some effort into. But I guess to sum up, Your Worship, from the dialogue or those questions coming into the chambers last time around, we've taken a bit of a step back so that we can still maintain and do the water side of the project, but broadening the scope a little bit to, what other rehabilitation in that area, that, say, recreation area, what we can do, whether it's capital related or frankly operating and through operating budgets. So I'll stop there, Your Worship. That's a response to the original question.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. That raises some question for me in that area. Now, we were talking about the local people being able to have something that is representative of the area that we're removing, and now we have taken two things off the table from what I'm sitting here and listening to tonight. One is we've taken the upgrade of the tennis court and put that on a different level of thing, and now we're taking the top of it and basically going to have a water holding facility while we go back to the table and figure out what can and can't go on top of that. So can you kind of give me an idea of what time frame we might be looking at? And the other concern I have right now is we're getting close to our debt limit, and we're talking about spending some more money to upgrade an area. So I guess, what does it look like for the residents today, based on what we're doing in that area, so that they have some place to be able to? Are we just left with the park and the ability of what it is?
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can respond to some of that, and then I might have to ask our general manager to respond to some more of the technical side on the water aspect itself. So what, I'll try to be very straight here. So if we were to just continue to do as originally proposed, what the residents would see is not much changing, and the tennis facility is essentially relocated. And what I'm talking about is to ensure that whether it's over the course of, through this year, through 2 years, through 3 years down the road, that ultimately they see something much more or much better than that. And that's why, again, alluded to potential operating costs or operating changes and so on and so forth. Not at this point, it's not contemplated a significant, massive, significant meaning millions of dollars worth of capital construction in that particular area, because we haven't necessarily gotten that far yet. But what I wanted to provide to council, I guess verbally anyways at this point, was just an understanding and a notion that we can take what is more or less a straight infrastructure project, and see if we can't leverage that into more of a improvement, enhancement of the recreation or the green space or the whatever you want to call it on that particular location. I'll stop there, Your Worship. If the General Manager wants to add anything specifically on the water reconstruction.
Thank you, Town Manager. Through Your Worship to Councillor Palechico and all of Council. So just talking strictly about the project at a high-ish level, there's a number of items to, when we're going into reservoirs especially, that we want to be mindful of when we do the work. And there are components within the facility that we have to address, but there's also the superstructure as well. And one part of that is the roof. So ensuring that as we go through the project, the intention is to provide a proper sealed surface on the top of that reservoir. Part of that does mean that we have to remove some of the stuff that's there. That includes the asphalt and some other materials as well. Seal that up, and the surface that would go in that's currently planned from just strictly from the facility perspective is not one that was contemplated for at the time when we were doing the work. As the town manager mentioned, we're taking a step back and looking at the whole site and saying, well, what can we do better? Recognizing that it's more than just a space. It's a detail that we have to work out internally and make sure that we're doing right by the area. Because when we approach the tennis court facility, part of the answer I just gave was relocating that and not losing that facility to the town was important. So as the town manager mentioned, also seeing how the rest of the site works is also important, and we don't have that detail yet, but it's something we're looking into.
Hey, any other questions for clear understanding? Okay. And I just want to ask, in terms of what was mentioned here, that staff are going to review it and look at different ways to maybe utilize or program it. And I also heard the comment about maybe capital dollars or extra operating dollars after whatever's been decided. So is there enough money in this $5 million allotment to be able to address some extra tree planting or a different play structure? Like, is that going to be all here? Because I think Councillor Anderson asked about the relocation of the tennis courts and the pickleball courts, and that was actually presented. That was about $700,000 in this budget. So if we're talking about re-enhancing this area, and I heard capital, so where are we going to get the extra dollars for that capital?
So maybe I'll just ask the General Manager just to comment a little bit on the relocation cost or the process there, where we're at and what we're up to on that side, and I can speak to the rest.
So, Your Worship, through the rest of the council, so just a bit of an update on the court relocation. There's several moving parts with that particular project. We are talking with some of the local users, pickleball users, basically, about a partnership related to improvements or court development. There is a space in the North Business Park that we have identified that will work for the court relocation. Our contribution towards that project, we're still having those conversations with the two groups that we're currently in discussions with. There's also another option that is potentially on the table that is being factored into all of that too soon to talk in great detail about the third option, but it may have some impact on our project as a whole in terms of also achieving some of the same outcomes we're trying to do with the court movement, but in a different location under a different business model. So things are moving very quickly. There might be another update in the very short future, near future, related to what the eventual outcome is on court relocation, what the business model looks like, what the funding model and the partnerships related to the outcome may be. And once we have some more firm information that can be public, we can certainly provide that to council, either during a future meeting or through an email. But certainly, we're doing our due diligence to replace the courts on our side, but we do have some other conversations that are happening that may impact what that might look like.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions for clear understanding? Seeing none, we'll go to Councillor Hansard for the motion, please.
Your worship, I move that town council give second reading to bylaw 2691 DEB 24, a bylaw to authorize debenture borrowing in the amount of $5 million for the upgrade of the Meridian Heights Reservoir.
Thank you. Members of council, any questions, comments, and debate on the motion? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was trying to figure out when to ask my question here and maybe waited a little too long, but I'll jump in with it here now. One of the notes in all three of the borrowing bylaws before us this evening mentioned that these were advertised for 2 weeks in the paper to allow for public responses as per the MGA. No responses received regarding those advertisements. When I flip back to the MGA, it looks like, there's certainly a comment that they have to be borrowed. I'm just wondering from a municipality standpoint where the decision was made or where it's captured in our policies and bylaws that will be 2 weeks in the public newspaper. And I'll preface that with saying, when we did our public participation policy, when we looked at our changes to our land use bylaws and those sorts of things, we actually removed the advertisement in the paper because there was just kind of the sense that maybe the value wasn't there, in terms of cost benefit. We weren't getting responses, so we were going to look at some additional avenues to engage the public in these matters. And so just looking for some clarity and some commentary on the decision, and again, whether that's policy or otherwise, to advertise borrowing bylaws in the newspaper for those 2 weeks. And then, sorry, I'll add a second question there. Do we advertise anywhere else, whether that's town website, et cetera, to ensure the public's informed?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for your question, through your worship, to Councillor Anderson and all of council. So the MGA does stipulate that it has to be 2 consecutive weeks advertising, and so we still follow those standards, even though our bylaw had removed some of those requirements. So we just still follow the MGA sections that are quoted on the council agenda item. And then subsequent advertising or supplementary advertising, the formal advertisement that you see in the paper is not posted anywhere else. However, through our council highlights, our council meeting highlights, all of those go through all of our regular channels and are posted on the website, as well as the meeting minutes and the meeting document.
Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, thank you for that. Sorry, and maybe I've missed it, and I certainly appreciate the reference back to the MGA, which is kind of where we go for all matters. You mentioned 2 weeks. The specification of being 2 weeks in a local newspaper, is that an MGA requirement or a municipality decision?
Okay. Administration?
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Anderson. So it's a little bit of both. We did bring in our public advertising bylaw that allows us to advertise as per the Act or within the regulations of our public advertising bylaw, and specifically with respect to planning. So for the financial debentures, we chose to go with what the Act says, just because that's a standard that we have been using for our debentures within the town. And that is typically a best practice for debenture borrowing.
Go ahead.
Okay. So when I've gone through the related statutes or sections that were outlined here in our agenda package, I do find that, council by bylaw may advertise, and it lists a number of different means, including electronic means and so on. And so, I don't see anywhere where it's specific to print media. And I guess where my question's coming from this evening is we have looked at all of our other public engagement and sort of collectively as council decided that, print media wasn't necessarily sort of our best avenue for engaging that feedback. And so certainly appreciate the information this evening and the answers to my questions. And I think it may be something for us to consider if there's maybe a little bit more that we can be doing in terms of public transparency and advertising of borrowing bylaws to ensure that information gets into the hands of residents and they have that opportunity if they're not necessarily reading the paper. And so that we do our best to make sure residents are informed about decisions that impacts their tax rates and so on. So.
Okay, thank you for bringing that forward, Councillor Anderson. And definitely, it could be as easy as if we do not put it in the print media for 2 weeks, can we, does it satisfy by posting it 2 weeks on the town website, where we have more advertising, or town social media? That's a good conversation to have a little bit later on. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Hassler, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did,
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor. Just a comment, please. This project, it's not a beautiful project when we think about it, when we're talking about spending $50 million, but it's definitely one of those projects when our people are telling us, please take care of what we've already got, not always be looking at what we can build new. Really and truly, a good council, a good administration looks how we can do both to the best of our ability within our means. And I believe this is a project that needs to be looked after. This reservoir is extremely important for the water management of Stony Plain, and when we consider that we're sitting on top of two large aquifers, one near the surface and one very deep, if we're not looking after and managing that water, we know what can happen to our residents and the damage to property and so forth. So it's a very needed project, and I'm glad to see it finally on the table so that this council has the opportunity to get this job done.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Councillor Hassler. And again, it's 5 million, not 50 million.
Did I say 15?
Yeah, no, you said 50.
Oh, did I?
So kind of like, whoa.
Well, I'm looking at 5, and I thought that's what I said. I did mean 5.
Thank you. Just making sure that we understand that it's a 5 million borrowing bylaw, not $50 million borrowing bylaw. Okay, any other questions and debate on the motion? Okay. See none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Okay, Councillor Anderson for third reading, please. Oh, yes, Councillor Anderson's.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that town council give third reading to bylaw 2691/DEB/24.
Members Council, questions, comments, and debate on the motion for third reading? Okay, seeing none, on behalf of council and residents, thank you, administration, for getting all the bylaws put together and then going through the process with council. As mentioned, I think when we talked about it during corporate plan and also when first reading came, these are needed amenities within our community. Not only are we looking at building our future with the new Public Works administrative building, but repairing the central trunk line, and also then again now repairing the Meridian Heights Reservoir. So again, looking after our current infrastructure and our future infrastructure to come. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, that is carried. Okay, moving on, that ends our business items. So moving on to number 9, which is business items now. Number 9.1 is the volunteerism and civic engagement strategy. Go ahead, administration.
Hi, thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me here tonight. I am happy to present the Volunteerism and Civic Engagement Strategy. In your council package, you received the strategy and appendixes for reference, including the What We Heard report and the background information. So here's a snapshot of the past 25 years, 25 plus actually. Stony Plain has been committed to promoting volunteerism since 1997. The focus has been on connecting people to opportunities, building capacity of organizations, and to provide leadership on issues related to volunteerism and civic engagement. In 2022, we celebrated 25 years of volunteer services in Stony Plain, and that seemed like a good time to evaluate and confirm the direction. A public engagement plan was created and implemented to seek feedback from residents on the current volunteer landscape and to develop possible actions that would move volunteerism forward. Based on the public engagement, the What We Heard report was released in 2023, and this helped develop the strategy that we have here today. So aligning plans. This slide just illustrates how volunteerism and the civic engagement strategy aligns with Stony Plain's vision and fits within the municipal development plan, the strategic plan, the corporate plan, as well as the strategy development itself has been part of our department business plan. The theme of community development can be seen throughout the plans with the commitment to fostering a sense of community belonging and inclusion. The key action identified in the strategic and corporate plan is to enhance civic engagement opportunities through volunteerism, neighborhood development, and leadership opportunities. So with talking about aligning of plans and how we are committed to fostering a sense of community belonging and inclusion, we come to a vision. Our vision is to cultivate a strong, healthy, and connected community where everyone feels a sense of belonging. To achieve this vision, we have developed a comprehensive strategy focused on increasing community participation and connecting individuals to diverse and inclusive volunteer opportunities. So the strategy has 4 overarching focus areas with accompanying goals that have been developed to guide volunteerism and civic engagement within Stony Plain. Under each goal, key actions have been developed that when implemented will move the strategy forward. The actions were based on direction from other plans, department priorities, public feedback, and stakeholder engagement. So focus area number 1 is opportunities. Our goal here is to increase community participation by connecting people to diverse and inclusive volunteer opportunities. One of the biggest actions that you'll see from this goal includes bolstering the volunteer database Better Impact. Focus area number 2 is community leadership, with our goal here to foster leadership development within the community. This is where you will see, or we will see, the development and implementation of a leadership program that is based on skill building. We will also work on further developing the municipal volunteer program for the town of Stony Plain. This will streamline processes internally for town departments to continue to engage volunteers. Focus area number 3 is organizational capacity. This is where we're going to build volunteerism capacity of organizations through leadership and expertise in volunteer engagement and management. Actions that you'll see here include making progress over the next, actions that we will be able to make progress on over the next few years include engaging with volunteer managers in the region on a regular basis, and expanding resources available to the organizations to make their volunteer engagement more efficient for them. The final focus area is enhancing awareness. The goal is to raise the profile of volunteer services within the community and further promote volunteerism and civic engagement. So here's where you'll see increased promotions to encourage volunteerism, and volunteer services will be out and about at community events and presenting to groups to promote the benefits of volunteerism. The next section presents an overview of the recommended actions with a high-level implementation timeline. So the actions have been scored and can be delivered based on this relative timeline. So short-term indicates actions we could achieve within the first year. The medium is 2 to 3 years, and long-term would be in 4 to 5 years. There are 27 actions identified, and by scoring these actions, we'll be able to see progress annually under each focus area. The Volunteerism and Civic Engagement Strategic Plan is a 5-year plan that identifies new and ongoing initiatives that will enhance volunteerism and civic engagement in Stony Plain. This strategy aspires to meet the ever-growing needs of our community. The implementation of the strategy will require the cultivation of partnerships to collaboratively accomplish initiatives. However, overall success will not occur without support from the whole community. There will be continued progress in every focus area over the next 5 years of implementation. Progress will be monitored through regular updates via municipal reporting mechanisms, comparison of annual stats year over year, and using our outcomes and indicators established, data will be collected after activities and reported on in the annual report to measure progress. To keep the strategy on track to achieve our vision of a strong, healthy, connected community where everyone feels a sense of belonging, 3 outcomes and associated indicators have been identified to measure progress. The focus areas, goals, and actions identified will improve the social well-being of community, where we will see the community is connected and engaged. These actions will also improve the social well-being of individuals, so residents will experience personal well-being and also be more connected with others. There are several indicators that we can use to measure this impact over the next 5 years. We could report on community members reporting positive attitudes towards others. We could be asking residents to report on they now have an increase in diverse range of activities available for them to participate in. Volunteers can report an increase in their meaning and purpose. Community members or residents can report an increase in the quality of social relationships, and also that people feel respected and a sense of belonging. So that's just an example of some of the indicators that we would be, that we have the option of using to measure progress. So it is the intention that the strategy will be revisited every kind of 3 to 5 years for evaluation. The town of Stony Plain will continue to engage community members to seek and receive ongoing input to ensure the strategy is reflective of the community needs and that diverse communities members are continually seen, heard, and included. Community engagement plans will be created to ensure inclusive public participation for the review of the work on an annual basis. Possible approaches for monitoring and reporting on this success, looks like examples could be convening focus groups, engaging with community members to discuss issues that are important to them. We will continue to participate and contribute to regional, provincial, federal, and international communities of practice. So each year, community members generously give their time and talents. They contribute to community connectedness, enhance civic engagement, and support the delivery of high-quality community programs, initiatives, and events. The key focus areas and goals and associated actions outlined in this document will help support community members and organizations. This strategy details a framework to follow to help ensure volunteerism and civic engagement continue to thrive and grow in Stony Plain well into the future. This strategy serves as a formal starting point, signaling Stony Plain's continued commitment to nurturing the well-being and fostering healthy, connected communities. Achieving this ambitious goal necessitates the shared responsibility of all stakeholders, including community members, organizations, and the town of Stony Plain. So in essence, the success of this strategy hinges on collaborative efforts from all involved. In its entirety, the volunteerism and civic engagement strategy effectively communicates the collective intention to cultivate a vibrant, inclusive community. Together, we can weave the fabric of a connected community, one that faces the future with optimism and resilience. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you for your presentation. It's just a great strategy. I think one of the things we talked about when we had the task force on community engagement was to get our residents more involved in the community and understand what's happening. So I think looking forward to seeing this get implemented. Members of council, any questions for clarity and understanding? Councillor Meyer, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a few questions, so I'll ask one and then let somebody else have a turn. Just in terms of, for clarity, going to our evaluations, page 47 there, am I to read the five, just the way I read it was that we had already settled on that we were going to go to a consultant evaluation at 5 years, but the way you just read it now, it sounded more like that was an option that, just for clarity, is one sort of, we've committed to one way of evaluating, or that's just a possibility and we'll sort of cross that bridge when we get there?
Go ahead.
Through your worship to Councillor Meyer. Yes, sorry, I'm just trying to find the slide. Yes, that was not committed, that was just left as an option, that we could engage a consultant if we felt needed.
Okay, and just to follow up on that, so again, I read these things sort of as written in stone, but like I say, I'm kind of getting the impression now that not necessarily the case. Going to the outcomes, you said these are some of the outcomes that we could measure. So would I be correct that there would be other outcomes that we would be, these are just for sure we're going to measure these ones? If you can maybe expand a little bit more on that for me.
Sure. Thank you again, through Mayor to Councillor Meyer. That is, I kind of read the laundry list. So if we were to measure every single one of those, it would all feed up into improved social well-being of individuals or improved well-being of community. So from that list, we have the flexibility to kind of choose from that list. And it would all feed back into those the two outcomes. Sorry, there's 3 outcomes with 2 indicators.
Okay.
Did that make sense?
Yep. If somebody else wants to ask some questions, that's...
Okay, I'll move over to Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation this evening. I've been waiting with eager anticipation for this one. This is certainly near and dear to my heart, even prior to my time on council and that sort of thing. And so I came up with 1,000,001 things I wanted to say. I got some flack for my 1,000-word essays last time around, so I'm going to narrow it down to one focus here, and that's our youth. And one of the things that I was thrilled to see in this, the presentation and the strategy around volunteerism, and civic engagement is the priority placed on youth. And I could find the term youth specifically laid out in 3 of 4 sort of key areas, but also could be extrapolated in the 4th. And so, a priority of council through our strategic planning was that youth engagement side, and that certainly is seen here very, very clearly. Looking for maybe some thoughts from administration. I know this has come up with council a couple of times over the last 2.5 years, but there's a couple of points here we can point out. 1.3 speaks specifically to fostering youth engagement by collaborating with different groups, which I think is great. Moving down 2.4, looking at the development of leadership abilities, learning new skills, those sorts of things. And that sort of conversation has come full circle a couple of times to the idea of a youth advisory committee and what that might look like. And when I look here about, engaging with youth and getting their feedback and how do we engage more youth and what sort of opportunities they're looking for and that sort of thing, certainly feel like those conversations would align really nicely with something like a municipal youth advisory committee. And so not sure if this is to yourself or to another member of our team that's here, but just looking for some thoughts from administration on the viability of sort of a youth advisory or youth leadership committee within the town of Stony Plain.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Anderson and the rest of Council. So earlier this year, we concluded a Soaring project, which was a project funded by Alberta Health Services. And part of that project was to work with youth within the community to understand what they need for better health and wellness for themselves. And so we treated that as a bit of a leadership development project. They were given the opportunity and hosted a couple of community events. One of those was the event at Heritage Park, kind of the sports day tryout. And so that was kind of our first strong foray into something that would be a bit more of a standalone youth advisory, youth leadership type of activity. We have hosted the Stony Plain Youth Team for many years now, and that, of course, feeds into the concession work experience program and different work experience programs within the municipality. We have not completed a formal assessment on what a youth advisory council or a youth advisory program would look like for the town of Stony Plain, and that may be something that we take under consideration and do some analysis as we move through our youth centre development activities.
Thank you for that, and I certainly appreciate the feedback there, and I think, I really appreciate the comments around our youth center and engaging the youth that are there. Sometimes I wonder if that engagement focuses on sort of that demographic that attends sort of those community events, and I think what I'm talking about is trying to pull youth from different areas of our community, different locales, schools, junior high, high school, whatever that might look like, to try to broaden our understanding of what that looks like. I spent lots of time in youth sort of engagement and leadership, and one of the things that I know to be true, and statistics would bear this out, but that about 50% of adults that volunteer, or close to 50%, actually started as a youth. And so this idea that to build sort of that engagement in our community and that vibrancy that we've come to know and love about Stony Plain, I think to keep that momentum going and that spirit of volunteerism that exists, I think it's important that we engage our youth in a meaningful way. And I know some of that work is happening. I kind of had a list of things over the last year where I've seen youth involved in the region in those leadership opportunities. And an example of that was the Walk to End Violence. We had a number of high school students present that read the land acknowledgement. It's been alluded to, Sports Day as well. We met for sort of our State of the Region, or the Chamber of Commerce had their regional event, and we were able to see some of the youth from our neighbors to the east here, actually a part of the municipal video that was celebrating the work that was going on within the municipality. And, what a great opportunity for them to share the work that they were doing in leadership. And so super excited to see what we have before us. I know there's some very aspirational things there that I've spoken to. I appreciate the comments from administration on being open to explore some of those things, and I'm thrilled to see where this goes over the next few years. So thank you so much.
Good. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for the presentation. There's a lot of really great information in here. One of the pieces that stood out to me as maybe missing, I guess might be the right word, is the regional context on this. As I went through the plan, as I read through the strategy, it's very focused on within our own borders. And we understand particularly that many of our organizations that actually utilize volunteers do not just exist within our borders. They are regional to the tri-region. There's a slight mention in the tri-regional plan in the actual strategy document. But in particular, I'm looking at page 64, on the implementation side, and it talks about, it's got the graphic, and it does have the other municipalities in there, but I guess as I read through, I didn't really see a lot of a connection. How do we take this strategy that we've developed, and how do we make sure that this strategy aligns with our regional partners who are also working with these same organizations and trying to essentially do the same thing, since this was done as a Stony Plain strategy rather than a regional strategy?
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Laurie and the rest of Council. So one of the challenges that we've had in the 25 years of the Volunteer Centre is that basic question: are we a Stony Plain Volunteer Centre or are we a regional volunteer centre? And typically the way that we respond to that question when we're working with our regional partners is a little bit of both. That, we are funded by the town of Stony Plain and Parkland County and the province of Alberta through the Family and Community Support Services program funding. However, we know that none of the work that we do in the region happens without the collaboration and the support of our regional partners. And so working with those organizations to foster that strong volunteer base is incredibly important to making sure that this strategy works. The mechanism that we've chosen to move that forward at a regional level is the Better Impact database. And so that database itself is open to volunteers no matter where they live within our region. It's open to organizations no matter where they provide direct services or where they might be headquartered. And so that's our way of ensuring that the volunteer climate is built and fostered throughout the region, that our organizations are strong, and that we can see the connections between the two. However, in putting this strategy together, we also recognize that there's some incredibly important elements that Stony Plain itself needs to consider. And so this strategy helps us to see and gives administration the guidance and direction that we want to be able to use in order to support implementing Council's vision through our key master documents.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up? Oh. Okay, Councillor Hansard, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I actually sort of saw something different in all of this. First of all, what I want to comment on was it was so good to see this volunteerism synopsis telling us who's volunteering, where are they volunteering, how many hours are they volunteering, do they return year after year, or do they come and go away? And I was really impressed with the tiny little number that we are reducing in volunteering, where we had these big increases in the amount of volunteers and those who return year after year after year. I actually sat there because I don't know the names of the organizations. Some people are volunteering not within the context of an organization. That's very hard to capture if we're going to look at a regional concept. But for instance, if someone is volunteering to do taxes for seniors, they're everywhere. So they may live in Stony Plain. The service may be provided in a building in Stony Plain, but the people they serve are bigger than that. Also, organizations like NeighborLink, the food bank, many of the schools are serving a community much bigger than Stony Plain residents. So from my perspective, I actually think we already have that. Now, to coordinate this with one or two other municipalities to get a really good picture, we might not get a report like this for another 10 years. I frankly don't want to wait that long. No council should wait that long to hear what's happening in this area, because communities become great because of the volunteers. We could not be who we are and function the way we do in so many festivals and other things that happen in our community without volunteers. So to get a picture, to capture something about volunteerism in our area, I think was phenomenal. So what I would say is maybe encouragement could be given to the other municipalities, if they haven't done this, to do theirs. And then the people with higher paychecks than I make get together and figure out how all of that works together and what is that overall picture. But that's not going to be done all at one time by one big conglomerate effort. I think it has to be done piece by piece, community by community. And to have come up with this information, and from my viewpoint, 184 responses was a pretty good section of what's happening out there. It painted a beautiful picture. And it gave me, the first time I actually recall seeing this where it stuck in my brain, it gave me something to stand back in awe of. So thank you so much for doing all the work. And I'm sure there was a lot of number grinding and, you know, the formation of questions and putting together events where people had an opportunity to respond and then analyzing all of that. Thank you for that work. The thing that I would like to see come out of that is along the lines of what Councillor Anderson said. Capture those areas where we're not quite grasping how to take this to the next step, or where Councillor Laurie maybe is directing our attention to is, what does this mean for the overall picture of volunteerism in our region? My encouragement, strong encouragement, is that our neighbors do the very same kind of thing, and maybe we make it easier because we've just done this, to make our information available to them and ask them to see if they can't put something together. It would be lovely for this council yet to see this, and yet I can't even imagine. You talk about volunteer hours. I can't imagine how many hours went into coming up with that report. So thank you so much for it. And even though it was a lot of extra reading in one package on one subject, I thought it was well worth it, and I really appreciated it.
Thank you, Councilor Hansard. Any other questions, comments, and questions of clarity? Okay. Going back to Councilor Meyer, go ahead.
So I guess, not debate, but I do have a concern. And I'm looking for you to alleviate that concern. So while reading this package, and it's a great job. I think back to our time on that mayor's task force in my first term. So I see some familiar answers there, and I also see a much more robust report, and so I appreciate it very much. But one of my concerns is that we seem to focus a lot on of how volunteering affects the individual. Down to our outcomes, we measure, do they feel more connected? Are they happier? All of this type of thing. And so while I think those things are important, I also, I'm curious, are we going to assess the community groups themselves? Are they, after our plan comes down, are they seeing a benefit? Do we have, I don't know, maybe a scorecard, where you started, where you were? Are we looking at anything like that? And just in that regard, maybe you can speak to why the focus on individuals and sort of a lack of, assessing the groups.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Meyer. So first thing, what was the first question? Outcomes.
Generally speaking, it's why are we focusing on individuals
Right.
as much as versus, say, the outcomes for the groups?
Right. So as we, as you can see in the strategy, we do have the improved social well-being of community, and so our overarching outcome there is the community connected and engaged. So I think we will be able to report on that. We will be able to make progress. But I think the other kind of side of that was you were asking, how are we going to, the report card piece. Yeah, so I think that our What We Heard report is a great baseline. And we are, through through some of the focus areas, we are working really closely with the regional volunteer leaders, so the nonprofit organizations that are engaging volunteers. We do have emphasis on working with them, supporting them, getting their feedback. So they were a part of the engagement for the baseline. So I do believe that we would be, of course, they would be included in any future evaluations. I don't think we'll miss that piece.
Okay. Thank you. That's a good question to ask. And I think one of the things that I look forward to is that indicator on how that benefits the wider community. And I think the community groups are part of the wider community, which we'll be able to see the spin-offs. If those community groups are doing better because of the volunteer basis has increased, then our community health will be generally higher as well. So I think there's a good way to measure it. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to refer to page 184, individual survey responses. I found this, I went back to this actually a couple of times because I thought it was kind of unique, and I'm wondering if it's a common trend for volunteering. It says, helping neighbors when they need, help friends or family, volunteer on behalf of an organization. Then we go back to helping out in the neighborhoods and stuff like that. So what I don't read in there is a lot of volunteerism with community groups. And I found that a bit challenging because we talk about how do we get people to volunteer with community groups. It's clear here that they also see volunteering as helping the neighbor and helping people within the community. So I know it says the list of available responses mirrors that of a Volunteer Canada survey. So my question is, have we seen this before? Is this a trend that's been there for a long time? Or is this just a new trend that's starting to come out?
Thank you, Your Mayor Worship, through to Councillor Plechko. I think maybe what's happening is there's just been more of a differentiation between informal volunteering is gaining more recognition, so trying to really highlight that informal volunteering piece. And so maybe in the past years or years ago, that wasn't quite. It was either you volunteered for a community group and that's what you did, and that informal piece wasn't recognized. So I would say in the last few years, we're definitely seeing, I think, whether it's increasing, I don't know, but I think it's just that recognition that volunteering is more than formal, there's informal. So I think that's what we're seeing across even Canada, is just highlighting that helping your neighbors is a form of volunteering.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think you referenced page 184, and I could not find that, so is that?
No, I think I referenced page 84.
Okay. When it came through and it said 184, I'm like, 184. But it's page 84?
If I did, I apologize for that. No, it's 84 of 108.
Okay. That is good. Okay, Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the second opportunity here to speak. I had the privilege of sitting down with a couple of service providers over the last couple of weeks, and one of the concerns that they shared with me was the struggle that they're having in terms of recruiting and retaining volunteers. And so I do sort of have a couple of questions along these lines, but just looking for maybe just an indication from administration on the uptake of service providers in our community. We have some larger ones that we know recruit and manage their own volunteers. We had, I believe it was NeighborLink in to speak with us, and they kind of had a big thing going on and did some things independently, and we're a little bit, surprised. It sounded like to hear that maybe there was an opportunity to advertise with us for those opportunities as well. And so just a couple of comments, if you would, on the uptake from community organizations, and if there is opportunity for us to advertise for some of our service groups, even if they are maintaining their own database and managing their own volunteers as well.
Yes, thank you for the question, Councillor Anderson. For sure. So when we talk about bolstering volunteer services like the Better Impact site. That's exactly what we're talking about. It's been there for years, but it hasn't probably been widely promoted as well maybe as it could have been. So that is exactly one of our goals that has actions right under it. You'll see a lot more promotions coming out, and then a lot of that capacity building. So getting out and talking to the service agencies and just really promoting that it is available for them. So that's the whole point of it. We're just managing it on the back end, but every organization in the area has the opportunity to post on it. So we're hoping that the Better Impact will become the hub for volunteer opportunities in the region.
Thank you for that. And if I may, through that Better Impact database, does that also track hours, if you will, of contributions, not overall, but for specific individuals?
Yes, thank you again for the question. Yeah, it does, absolutely. So for 2024, we've been working on onboarding all of our town volunteers to now use Better Impact, and they're recording their hours right in there. So it's been a bit of an adjustment, getting everyone to use the computer to do that. But so far, like easing people into that, it's gone well. So you'll even see for our reporting now quarterly, within our quarterly reports for the town, you'll see volunteer hours now reported.
Perfect. Thank you for that. One of the things that sort of has crossed my mind a little bit, and volunteers, in my experience, don't volunteer for the recognition, but there's certainly an appreciation when recognition is offered. And, I've been thinking about, members of our community that we see regularly at Stony Plain events and activities, and it's those volunteers that are with us time and time again that we really couldn't do without. And I know every year, we have our volunteer event and opportunity for connection and that sort of thing. I just wonder if maybe there's an opportunity there for some formal recognition for those volunteers in our community that, are with us time and time again and investing hundreds of hours in our community. Don't need an answer there, but just certainly something that, I've often thought about and making sure that we can celebrate, the contribution that they bring and the impact that they have on our community at large. And so again, not looking for any feedback, but just something that has been on my mind. I do have a question though that I would like some feedback on, and that's the volunteer page on our Town of Stony Plain website. I love that there's a spotlight here for the Kinsmen. I know they're still looking for volunteers for Farmers Day here coming up. And then underneath that, we actually have a volunteer opportunities. It's this blue button that says, click here. I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to make that more prominent on our webpage, whether that's one of the sliding images on our homepage that kind of comes up, get involved, volunteer, that sort of thing, or to have it a little bit even more prominent on the volunteer side, with the understanding that organizations are experiencing some challenges in the recruitment and retention. I wonder if there's a way that we can be a partner in making that more prominent and visible for residents within our municipality. And so I don't know who on administration wants to tackle that, but is there opportunity there that we can, make that more visible to residents in terms of the opportunities that exist, so we're not having to click through the site to find it?
Yep. Administration, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Anderson and the rest of Council. So it is part of the work plan as we're launching this strategy to take a look at the website and make sure that everything is organized as well as it can be. And we've also got pretty significant support through the communications department to ensure that we're following website best practices in terms of getting people to the information most directly. And they've shown a lot of flexibility and willingness to help us promote both those volunteer opportunities, but also the concept of volunteerism and civic engagement from that informal volunteering perspective as well.
Perfect, and I love that, and I know that there is a comms plan in place, and I know that, there are things that we see regularly cycling through that communications plan that are relevant to the community, and I think there's a real opportunity here. My hope is to have the volunteer strategy a part of that comms plan, something that, is up front and center in our municipality. So anyway, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Any other questions, comments for clarity? Definitely appreciate the strategy coming forward. As we've seen from what you heard, what you heard and definitely from the strategy, the fabric of volunteerism is changing in our communities and every community around us. Individuals are no longer committing to a long-term commitment to volunteer. As a lot of it now is event-specific. If it touches them in a personal way, they're there, and they go above and beyond what is needed to volunteer to make that happen. But they're also busy. Lives are busy. Children is busy. So that's what we've seen is that over the last few years, we're no longer having those long-term volunteers that would volunteer for a full year. They're volunteering for 2 or 3 weeks period, and then they're done. And then they come back next year to volunteer again. So having the ability to actually to have this, and we mentioned the data center, I think, what is it? The Better Impact database allows, anybody that's interested to log in there, check it out, and they can easily find volunteer opportunities for within this community. And I think I heard it's also regional as well. So everybody has the opportunity to do that. So it gives everybody in the tri-region the ability to find something that's close to them as well. I do have a question regarding, in terms of the action items, there's, you mentioned there was 27 action items. There's S for short-term, M, and then L for long-term. I noticed out of the action items, there's 17 that are short-term. I think that's excellent, but is that over-ambitious? Like, are we able to accomplish those within the first year? Because there's only 6 that are medium-term and 4 that's long-term. So I know how hard CSD works, so I'm just looking forward to, yes, we can do it, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, we can do it.
Excellent. And there's...
That's it.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for entertaining me. Yes, they are ambitious, but I think we will be able to make a lot of progress very quickly. We've already started working on some of them. They've already been worked into our work plans. So I think you will see progress over the next year for sure. And then they will slowly, they will wane off. And so they'll continue, but just because we only have 4 in the next years, 2 and 3 or 4 and 5, the other S's will still continue needing work and refinement. So I am confident that we'll be able to make progress on all the S's very quickly, and then just kind of steady our pace and continue to grow it.
Okay, thank you. And then, actually, I just want to highlight one thing is kind of enhancing awareness of our existing community groups. I think members of council and I have had the opportunity to meet with many dedicated individuals that want to make a difference and an impact in their community. However, when you sit down there and you listen to the story and what they want to do, we already have organizations that are already doing that. So I think it's trying to get their awareness out there so we can connect those dots together. So instead of having 3 or 4 different organizations doing the same thing or focusing on similar things, is to maybe have them all work together so that there's a lot more power and the ability to pull the volunteers together. So I know that's a strategy, but how do we actually get that? Because everybody that moves into the community don't know what's going on there and what other organizations are, so they try to start their own group, or they want to, do another volunteering to help mental health. But we already have lots, 3 or 4 of them that are in the community that are doing that. So do we need a 4th group to do the same thing?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. A couple things. So I wanted to circle back a little bit to the regional discussion that we were having, and I just wanted to reassure council that there is a lot of work happening regionally. It's just not formalized in plans at the moment. So we're talking with our peers at City of Spruce Grove and Parkland County. They all have community development offices. And so we are, kind of negotiating informally on, okay, so you're serving this area, we're serving this. So those conversations are happening. I'd like to point out, the City of Spruce Grove, their website for supporting nonprofits is pretty robust. They do have a big department, not a big department, but a department focused on that. So then that's where we were like, okay, so volunteer services can really then focus on supporting volunteers. So we are kind of negotiating that informally between the 3 regions. So that is on the radar, and we are working towards that. And then back to the other piece, now I lost it again. Duplication, right. So I think that with one of the actions in there, it is to kind of revive or start again or bring together the volunteer leaders. So the volunteer managers of the nonprofits that are working with volunteers, to bring them together. So I think with revitalizing that, they used to meet many years ago. They had their own informal working group, but it's since been gone for quite a few years. So I think by revitalizing that, bringing the volunteer managers together, volunteer coordinators, whatever you want to, however they like to be referenced, bringing them together will start that conversation again. And hopefully that's definitely where we'll be talking about, reducing duplication and kind of that, again, negotiating, okay, if you're going to do this project, we'll do this project. So I think by revitalizing that group, we should be able to tackle that issue of duplication.
Thank you.
And Your Worship, I might just add as well, having a new organization start or have someone with a particular passion come in and want to address an issue is a good thing as well. That's one of the foundations of civic engagement. It's people who see a need in their community and want to take action and take steps to do something about it. Where we see that we can support them is by making sure that they are aware of other supports that they could align themselves with. So that might be shared volunteers. It might be collecting donations for something, like a backpack program, for example, for youth or school kids or something like that. So, and those are examples of grassroots activities that have started in the region, particularly through COVID, but also after. And, we see that as a way that we're just simply supporting the strengthening and the increased connections within the community by giving them access to the various resources that we have.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Any more questions for clarity and understanding? Go ahead, Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Near the bottom on page 89, I'm noticing that it says 55% of our respondents are not employed, 13% are classifying themselves as not in the working force. So that's closer to 70% of our volunteers are not working in some fashion. I'm kind of curious as to why not employed and not working are two different categories. Are we talking retired versus students? Because I didn't see anywhere that it talked about age of our volunteers.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Loynes, we'll do a little closer look at the exact data pull from this bullet. It's probably a combination of retired people and people who are not in the workforce because they're no longer looking for work, so unemployed people. But we'd have to do a closer look at that.
Okay, thank you. And can you just send that, the findings to council?
And then just on that, Your Worship, if you don't mind, further above it, we were talking about some of the challenges that we found with the volunteering was the hours or not so much availability due to probably work or families and things like that. If the opportunity, in your opinion, came up that 60-some%, trying to think of a word, sorry, that 60% of the not working would be able to find better timing, whether it's those needing it during the day or those needing it after work hours. Would you say, in your opinion, that would have changed completely on our volunteer personnel altogether?
Go ahead.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Loynes, just to make sure that I'm clear on the question. So if we consider the various timing of the volunteer opportunities and exploring whether or not that's a barrier to volunteering, would that be the heart of your question, Councillor Loynes?
Yes, that'd be correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate that flexibility to clarify. So one of the things about working with organizations is helping them to understand what volunteers want and what volunteers are interested in doing, and helping organizations adjust and adapt their own volunteer programs, not to the traditional way where they might come at it from thinking about, I'm an organization and I need volunteers to do this, but here's how I want to engage volunteers in my organization. And so structuring the type of volunteer activities they offer, the timing of those, the supports they provide, and the supports they provide could be things like onboarding, orientations, regular training. It could be things like childcare or transportation to the volunteer opportunities. It could be increased flexibility for things like volunteering remotely, very short-term volunteer activities, giving leadership of a volunteer activity, say, plan the annual fundraiser, please, because you've got the skill set to do that. And encouraging organizations to build their volunteer programs so that they can be more flexible to people in the community and create a better match and a better fit for the volunteer and the organization together.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, any more questions for clear understanding? Okay, seeing none, moving on to 9.1. So, Councillor Meyer for the motion, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm happy to make the motion that Town Council accept the volunteerism and civic engagement strategy for information.
Okay, thank you. Members of Council, any questions and debate on the motion? Go ahead.
Well, I'd just like to acknowledge just acknowledge that the report acknowledges the challenges that come with awareness and specifically when it comes to, I want to highlight page 97 there, a comment about while social media is great, people do specifically appreciate the being asked. So I like to see that captured. I also like to notice or just point out that of the goals or of the sections there, awareness has 8 of the actions, which is the most. So I think that's appropriate and good job. Good luck.
Okay. Thank you. And I appreciate those comments, Councillor Meyer, as you mentioned that having it posted all over town or on the social media is good. It brings the awareness, but doesn't go as far as being directly asked. And I think through this policy and engagement and strategy, the more volunteers that we have in our community, the more likely they'll be inclined to ask their friends, which then builds the volunteer base, and therefore it kind of spreads. And I think that's why the two key pillars of, how is the community doing and how are individuals in our community doing because of the volunteerism and engagement that we have in our community. So thank you for bringing that forward. Any other questions, comments, and debate? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Okay, moving on to number 10, which is council discussion. This is the time that allows members of council to bring things forward that we've heard from our residents, or just to share committee updates and different things that are happening throughout our community. Councillor Loynes, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Your Worship. As we know, this coming weekend is going to be our Farmers' Day. I have been asked by residents, due to the incidents that happened last year with the fair, are we taking extra precautions and doing extra, I don't want to know what the right word is, surveying of the rides?
Making sure everything is, the I's are dotted and crossed are T's. Administration?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Loynes, we do have an inspection by ARDERSA, which is the provincial inspection agency, scheduled for late Thursday, early Friday before the Midway opens.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I think, remember last year we've seen usually the provider rushes in and then sets up and then rushes away. Today I was down at Heritage Park and the provider's already down there starting to set up, so definitely a couple more days of setup will alleviate a few things. And as mentioned by our general manager, that the inspection corporation from the government of Alberta will be in town as well.
Okay, perfect. And then the only other thing for me was I had an opportunity this past weekend to join the NLCC 203 Navy League here in Stoney for their annual inspection. And it was great to see this youth from ages 9 to 12 getting all dressed up in their uniforms and parading around as proud as they could be and showing displays of what they had learned over the past year. And I just thought it was a great opportunity. Their group has grown exponentially. They went from 18 cadets last year to 33 this year, or 38 this year, sorry. So it was nice to see so many more people getting involved. And that is it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Meyer.
Just looking forward to the best weekend in Stony Plain. Of course, the Pioneer Museum will also be opened and hosting events, so come on out and check it out.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's easy to feel grateful when we end our meetings with a conversation about community organizations and volunteerism, and so certainly want to extend gratitude to those that formally or informally through volunteerism that's organized or just impromptu want to express my gratitude for each and every one of you. We live in an amazing community, and so it's so great to, see some of the tangible evidence of that in a report like the Civic Engagement Report this evening. But certainly so much goes on that sometimes goes unnoticed, and so a lot of gratitude to those organizations and those individuals. To carry on the theme of Farmers' Days, though, the Kinsmen and the Parkland Food Bank have sort of partnered here. We know the Kinsmen are involved in so much and always ready to lend a hand, and the food bank is currently struggling with donations, and so the Kinsmen have decided this week to put up collection boxes for food donations throughout the weekend. And so certainly if you're headed down to Farmers' Days, you can bring non-perishable. As well as during the parade, the Parkland Food Bank Society will be going through with their shopping carts, and they're looking to fill a cart. And so if you're coming down to the Farmers' Day parades, not only will you get some treats from council, but the food bank will be there ready to collect if you're able to donate there. And that gets turned around to those in our community who need just a little extra hand. And so certainly a great weekend, but an opportunity to make a difference at the same time.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of quick things. So first and foremost, I just want to extend thanks to our Public Works team for all the work so far on our horticultural level of service. The crews have been out fast and furious so far this spring and have the town looking quite nice, including our street sweeping teams that have been out there, the crews that have been out there doing the pruning on the trees, all the way through down to the grass cutting services. It's the town's looking in ship shape for this weekend for Farmers' Days, so loving that as well. I did have one question. We did receive an email from the General Manager of Community and Social Development in respect to the launch of the Youth Tri-Transit Summer Program. I'm just looking for some information on how this is going to be communicated out to the general public. So I see that starting on June 1st, the riders can apply. And it does talk a little bit about some messaging in the schools, APFA, the library, as where the applications will be available. But I'm looking more to see how are we going to get the word out about this program?
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Laurie and the rest of Council. So the communications plan is being reviewed by the department this week, and then the communications will go out, I believe, starting early next week to the general public.
Excellent, thank you very much. And then is there a limit on the number of passes? I think there was some discussion during corporate plan when it was approved about whether it was a specific number of passes or not. I didn't see anything in here that it's a specific number and that it'll be first come, first serve, or whether it will be an open application process and then there'll be a selection, or how that's going to work.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Laurie and the rest of Council, I will look into that detail and get back to you. The corporate plan had allocated $4,000 towards transit passes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing this launch next week and the communications plan around it, and certainly hope that it's a very successful program, as we know that transit has already been quite successful in the community, and getting youth experience on the transit system, I think, will help that continue to grow and provide options and alternatives for them within our community and within our region. So thank you so much for providing that information to council.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to give a huge shout out to the town and all of the volunteer organizations within it. This coming weekend is the busiest weekend that we have in the town. It's hosted by the town, it's hosted by the Kinsmen, and many, many other organizations within the community. And I think quite often we forget that the other community volunteers help to contribute to it. So it's fantastic that we're going to have that. I think you all need to be watching for the town float with council running up and down the street. And the delegation that we're bringing with us, the Shikawi people, will be well respected within our community and well viewed within our community. So I think I'm looking forward to that portion of it. Also, I'm just wondering if we could have a bit of an update on the disc golf that's being built in the park.
Your Worship, through the Deputy Mayor, certainly work continues fast and furious over at the location. Our disc targets are en route tomorrow, I believe, to Stony Plain. So install will happen fairly shortly after that. Then the T-pads will go in fairly shortly after that. We've worked with Mira Timber has donated a sign for the course also. So we're working with them on that design and finalizing that design. So that will be, they've got a window of opportunity to do that construction for us fairly quickly within their own shop. So a lot of pieces are falling together, a lot of pieces are coming together very quickly, and that's encouraging. And there's been a bit of work done from the P&I side in terms of some things that just needed to get done to make the course that much more better. And so we've had some internal embracement too with respect to going over and doing some of those things that could have been a cost implication to the course, but has certainly been something that internal teams have looked at as an awesome way to be part of something bigger in our community.
Thank you for that. I know the community is looking forward to that, and I know it'll bring a large attraction to the community as well. And just one last thing. Kinsmen, if anybody has time to volunteer for the weekend, now is your opportunity. There's always an opportunity to volunteer, and this is a great event for it. So get a hold of anybody at the Kinsmen if you have an hour or 10 minutes. They will appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Hansard.
Your Worship, I don't really have a lot, except to say tonight is an Oilers game. You guys are all wearing a shirt, so we should let us all get to the game.
To the game. Are you buying tickets for us?
No.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Councillor Hansard. And goalers go. All right, before we end up here, just wanted to share that on this past Sunday was the Alberta BMX Day. It's a provincial day that recognizes BMX riding within the province. There's quite a few associations in the area. The closest one to us is the Stony Plain BMX Association, and then they have a whole bunch of rental bikes or loaner bikes and some helmets and stuff. So anybody that's looking at kind of maybe checking out the sport, definitely great for youth and also adults. They also have an adult league. I did participate on Sunday with a loaner bike and a helmet and everything. I'm glad to say that I did not break any bones, because as you know, it does get a little scary, especially going over those hills. Because I remember I had no fear, probably about 20 years ago. And now going over those hills, I'm like, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. So I don't know what changed over the last 20 years, but it is still a good sport, and it's good to have, we're talking about community groups and organizations. That's another great group that volunteers. I'm not too sure if those hours are tracked or not within that database, but again, people that are doing things and volunteering things that are dear to their hearts and kind of the interests of their families.
I'm not in the habit of interrupting the mayor, but I think those are called bumps. Those are definitely not hills. So if you had a hard time on the bumps, then maybe you need to get out on your bike a little bit more. But I think there's a video of that too, actually, if you want to check that out.
Okay, so they're not hills, they're bumps, but when you're actually on the track, they're hills. All right, another thing, in terms of a few concerns, there's a concern raised about a larger pothole that is developing on the intersection of 44th Avenue and 50th Street. That's the T intersection down the road. Another concern was that because it is spring, and as mentioned that our roads are getting cleaner, we're seeing an increase of vehicles doing donuts in large parking lots and vacant lands. I've received complaints at West Terra Manor parking lot, Heritage Park parking lot, and also at the high school. If we can get some more enforcement, or I don't know how we do that, but if, again, it is that time of year again, it's springtime, people are driving more, and so that seems to pop up every spring.
Your Worship, just to quickly comment, we definitely have proactive patrols at all three of those locations. Actually, CPOs go to those locations and sit and do some of their work in the car so they can discourage some of that activity. Unfortunately, we can't be everywhere all the time. And we're trying to come up with ways in which perhaps the offenders are not aware of the fact that we may be there or on our way there to capture them in the process. So a couple of strategies that we're working on, but definitely there's a lot of proactive work happening in those three locations.
Okay, thank you. And then just, go ahead.
If I may, just wanted to further to what the general manager, as I mentioned, Zach Hyman from McDavid and Bouchard, 1-0 Edmonton.
Thank you for the update. So I guess we can end quickly. So before we close, let's make sure that I want to thank all our staff that'll be out making sure that the Farmers Days weekend goes well, and also to our community group partners and all the volunteers that stepped up. This is one of the biggest weekends that we have in our community that celebrates about getting together with our friends and family and just reconnecting after quite a few months stuck in the house, and then again, being a farming community, a lot of the farmers out there planting the seeds, so that's hence why it's called Farmers Days. It's a time that we get together and we celebrate our agricultural roots and history, so that is Farmers Days. So with that, thank you, and we're adjourned. Go Oilers, go.